All right, today we're stepping back in time to 1849, to a small township in Pennsylvania. We're going to dive into one single pivotal year in a young man's life, a year of loss, of responsibility, and a profound transformation that would really shape everything that came after.
And this, right here, is the question at the very heart of our story. It's about resilience, right? About those moments in life that force us to grow up, often long before we feel we're ready.
So let's meet our main character, David Jackson Carringer, but everyone just called him Jackson. At only 20 years old, he's trying to find his way in a world that has been completely turned upside down. For him, the path from boy to man wasn't some gentle slope. It was a sheer cliff he was suddenly forced to climb.
To really get who Jackson is becoming in 1849, we first have to rewind just 1 year, to the event that changed absolutely everything for him and his family. The death of his mother, Sarah, wasn't just a personal tragedy. I mean, it was a seismic event that fractured the very foundation of the Carringer family. Her absence created this huge void that touched every single part of their daily lives.
And this quote, wow, it just says it all, doesn't it? This captures his internal struggle perfectly. Jackson couldn't just fall apart and mourn. He had to become a pillar of strength for everyone else, pushing his own grief down to carry the weight of theirs.
Okay, so let's look at how this grief translated into real, tangible, and heavy responsibilities that landed squarely on his young shoulders.
And just like that, he's not just a son anymore. He's a partner to his grieving father, he's a protector, and he's a provider. For all intents and purposes, he's the new man of the house. And just how big was that responsibility?
8. Just let that number sink in for a second. 8. That's how many younger siblings were now looking to him for support, for guidance. This single number represents this immense and immediate burden.
And here's where that number becomes painfully real. I mean, these aren't just statistics, right? These are kids, from 17-year-old George all the way down to little Harvey, who was only 3 years old. He would have basically no memory of his mother. Jackson had to help comfort, guide, and provide for every single one of them. So with all this chaos and sorrow at home, you can imagine Jackson needed an anchor. And he found one, in the one place where he still had some control, his work.
Yeah, he wasn't just some kid learning the ropes anymore. He was a skilled carpenter, and a really good one at that. In a world that felt like it was falling apart, the precision of his trade, the straight lines, the solid joints, that offered a kind of stability he just couldn't find anywhere else. And his work was doing so much for him. I mean, yes, of course, the money was absolutely essential to keep the family afloat. But just as important, the physical act of building something tangible gave him a mental escape, a rhythm that could drown out the grief. It was his therapy and their lifeline, all at once.
But, of course, something had to give. All this intense focus on work and family, it came at a cost. The normal, carefree social life of a typical 20-year-old, well, for Jackson, that started to just fade away.
And this right here, this quote really gets to the heart of it. He was moving through the world carrying a weight that his friends, his peers, simply couldn't comprehend. He looked like them, but he was living in a completely different reality. And you can really see the difference here. Before his mother's death, things like barn dances were sources of joy. But now, he attends them more out of a sense of duty, standing on the sidelines, an observer rather than a participant in his own youth. Even his hobbies transformed. They weren't just for fun anymore. Hunting became a source of food and a rare moment of quiet solitude. Fishing was a chance to mentor his little brothers. And carving wasn't just a craft, it was a way to create small comforts, little toys for the youngest ones, like Matilda and Harvey. Everything had a purpose now.
Yet, even in the middle of all this grief and heavy responsibility, life has a way of moving forward. And Jackson began to look, however tentatively, toward a future of his own.
So amidst the hardship, a little glimmer of hope starts to appear. Now, he wasn't ready to court, not with his family needing him so much. But he started to notice someone, a young woman named Rebecca Spangler. It was a sign, a sign that his heart, though it was still raw, was beginning to heal.
At the same time, he's wrestling with this huge decision. It's like a fork in the road. Does he stay in Pennsylvania, rooted to his mother's grave and everything he's ever known? Or does he look west, to the promise of a fresh start, a chance to build something new, away from all the constant, painful reminders?
And this really shows you how much he had changed. His dreams weren't about adventure anymore. The California gold rush was happening, but that held zero appeal for him. He didn't want to gamble, he wanted stability. He dreamed of building a life on the steady foundation of hard work and family.
And his timeline, it shows us where that difficult year ultimately led. You have the devastating loss in 1848, which forces him into this new role in 1849. By 1850, his profession is officially recognized in the census. And by 1851, that glimmer of hope becomes a reality. He marries Rebecca and starts his own family, finally achieving the stability he craved.
You know, the year 1849, it was the crucible that forged the man he would become. The carefree boy was gone, and in his place stood a young man who understood the true weight of life and had found the strength to carry it.
Jackson's story is from a different time, but its theme is universal. It kind of leaves us with a question to think about for ourselves. What burdens have you carried that ultimately made you stronger?